Yay. Hello, hello, everybody. Come on in. Look at all of you here. Perfect. Perfect. I as we're waiting for people to join us, I just got two back-to-back emails from people saying, I don't have the link. Um, And so that just sent me into a heart attack zone that nobody had gotten the link and I didn't know what I was going to do. So this is proof that the link did go out to most people. I know that sometimes things go to spam and that might be tricky too, but I'm just so glad to see everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'd welcome you all by name, but I can't keep up. Oh, and so many faces that I have worked with before and adore seeing. Welcome, everyone. Oh, this is just doing my heart very, very good to see everyone. Welcome, welcome. All right, I cannot wait to do this today. We are going to be talking. I'm going to give people another moment to come in. Go ahead and wave to people in the chat or hello, hello. Okay, so I will tell you where I am this morning. I am in beautiful Wellington on a rather sunny, rather cloudy day. And if you've been listening to my podcast at all, which there's no expectation that you would, but oh boy, I had the holiday from hell, and it's just so good that it is over. We had four emergency room visits, three kidney stones, two falls downstairs, and one addict who was addicting so hard that she got ejected from the country and sent home 11 days early. So it was just so dramatic. And while all the drama was happening, I just kept thinking, I get to do this workshop. I get to do this workshop, and it will be about living inside your life where you are around all of the drama and knowing that none of it matters. None of it matters. We get to do our lives as artists all the time, exactly as we are. I showed up for my writing during that time this much, and that was enough. And if you have gone through December thinking, oh, December's going to be a good month, I'm going to get a lot of writing done, I'm going to get a lot of my work done, and then you didn't, welcome. That is the problem with December. I think not nobody, but very few people do what they want to in the month of December. The danger zone, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, is trying to change yourself in January to be somebody that you would rather be, that is stronger, better, faster, smarter, more efficient. Um, and the truth is, and what we're doing here, and worry more, worry less, write more, worry less, is not trying to change ourselves, just trying to be the best that we can be in the lives that we already inhabit. Oh, I love that everybody's checking in from where they are. I don't know why I love seeing weather reports. Meg's got snow in Aberdeen. Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, now that most people have made their way in, and I'm not seeing any more emails that went to spam, we are going to start. And I would love to just invite you right now to wherever you are in space, take a deep breath and maybe a little tiny stretch or a really big stretch if you want. And this is a space that even if you were sitting at your desk, in front of your computer, in this exact position for seven back-to-back meetings before this, which I hope you weren't because it's Saturday most places, this is a new space. This is a place that you have never been before. And we are together in this space with this collection of people thinking about writing. So, welcome to it. You are safe here. You are welcome. We are going to talk about writing. And it is also okay if you are a little bit nervous. This is a very easy, welcoming to introverts, introvert friendly kind of workshop. Because I am a deep introvert. I'm not going to make you talk very much, if at all. I will be asking questions that we might pop into chat, and I'll be watching that. But it's okay to be a little bit nervous. I could barely sleep last night because I was so excited about this. Everybody knows how to use Zoom. Please keep yourself on mute the whole time unless I ask you to come off of mute. That would be fantastic. Please stay on screen as much as you can because I love to see your faces. It actually gives me like so much energy. That said, you have no, ooh, this is very important. You have no obligation to keep your encouraging face on. Like if you just want to stay like this, 100% fine. Sometimes I feel like when I am in classes or meetings with people that I know, I must keep my polite face on. You do not have to. You do not have to. You can have resting whatever you want face on. And you can also go off screen whenever you need to. This is your space. Make it your space. But I do love to see you when you want to be seen. And that's the only time I love to see you, when you want to be seen. Um, Please drop questions as we go into the chat, and I will try to keep up. I may come back at the end. We'll have time for questions at the end. If you've got like a burning question that must be answered right now, raise your hand, and I will probably eventually see it. There's a little raised hand icon at the very bottom. What other little housekeeping things? Please feel free to come and go. It's an open door on the Zoom, so if you have to click out and then come back in, it will let you in. Not a problem. Um, and what should you? Oh, welcome everybody who has just joined too. Welcome, welcome. It's so good to see everybody. Um, what should you expect today? We are going to be talking about your writing process and how to embrace it as it is. You're going to be learning a little bit more about your writing process, or maybe if not learning about it, then examining it, turning it upside down and kind of shaking it around a little bit to find what your writing, what your creative process means to you, and deciding how it fits into your real life, which is never exactly as we want it to be, and getting okay with that. My real, true, deep writing life means I get up in the morning with the birds and I write for 4 or 5 hours joyfully and freely with nothing blocking my heart. And I get up and have a beautiful cup of tea and then I see friends and I have a delicious nap and I have a perfect work-life balance that absolutely never works. Never. I have been waiting to get to the place where my writing life makes sense and looks like a writer's life for years and years and years, and it's never going to happen, and that is absolutely fine. Let's see, make sure that I'm not missing anything right here. Okay. Da, da, da. If I have any connection problems, please let me know. I was a little bit slow earlier, but my wife fixed the whole internet, all of it, so it should be okay. Okay, so we're going to be learning about how writing fits into your real life. I will be talking a lot. This is more of a rate, and some people are just like so grateful about that. I don't have to talk. Some people might not be, but this is a Rachel talking and asking you questions kind of place. So again, feel free to relax right into it. Feel free to chat up anything in the comments that you want. We will be talking about things that I'm really passionate about. We'll be talking about emotional regulation when it comes to writing. And this whole idea that you are not lazy, you are not a terrible procrastinator, you are not letting yourself down. You are just dealing with emotional regulation around writing, and it's not easy. We're going to be talking about the critic's voice, what it means to you, and what we can do about it. And we're going to be talking about kind and very realistic tracking data. This is even for the non-data people. It's easy, but it's also real and kind. The looking at what we will be writing in the future and what information we can take from it. We will not be in here diving into planning out the next 361 days. We will not be talking about planning out the quarters, making a big huge goal and then breaking it down into smaller chunks and then putting them onto your calendar week by week by week. That is porn for me. I will always buy the class, watch the YouTube. I will do all of it. I will definitely buy the planner, and then I will definitely spend at least 3 days using it, and I will never look at it again. There are fantastic classes out there, and I am not going to be one of those classes that teaches you how to do that. My personal favorite, show of hands, has anybody done HB90 with Sarah Cannon? Oh, it's delicious. I'll just type it right in here in case you are that kind of person. Uh, Elisha says, I feel so seen. I think she spells her names two R's, one N. HB90 with Sarah Cannon. Explore that later at your leisure. It's a great class on how to do the quarterly, weekly, daily, hourly planning, which I will do and then never do again. So that's not what we're going to be doing in here. We're going to be talking about becoming the rejiggering expert that gets writing done, that gets books done, if books are what you would like to get done. Rejiggering is the biggest tool that I and the people that I work with use. Rejiggering is a word that means we are constantly reevaluating the goal, where we are, and making a new plan. And the biggest thing is being 100% fine with that. Expecting it, greeting it, getting excited. Ooh, I get to rejigger. Let's do it again. We're going to be talking about that rejigger dance. Like I said a little bit ago, we are all waiting for the time that our lives finally slip into place, that everything's in order, and we can get the writing done that we want to get done, and we can get all the other life stuff done that we want to get done. And if anybody read Oliver Burkeman's books, 4,000 Weeks, that was a real revelation. I'll just keep typing things into the chat here as I think about 4,000 Weeks. It was a real revelation that it's never going to happen. So stop worrying about it and do the best with what we have right now with who we are. Okay. I'm going to drop these questions into the chat and then I'm going to ask you to fill them out, and suddenly the chat will explode and we won't probably all be able to read all of it. But the chat is saved and I will read all of it later, and it will be available to you later. But I would just really like to see you drop into the chat here a couple of things. And I think some people have already done it, but where are you in the world? What genre you're currently writing in, or what you would like to write? Anything along those lines. And then I love a scale of 1 to 10. How content are you about your current level of writing productivity? There's no wrong answer here. Rosalind, that's funny. Go ahead and drop that into the chat. Fabulous. We're seeing Elkridge check in Seattle. Another Seattle. We're getting numbers on the scale like twos and ones. Claire's a fantasy 4. Anne Marie, Australia, fantasy 3. Katrina, poetry, memoir, fiction. We got Duluth, Minnesota in the house, Cornwall, UK. I've always wanted to go there. Tropical northern Minnesota. I hear it's quite balmy this time of year. Silicon Valley, we got numbers like 3, 7, 5, 10. Oh, good. Mags is a -10. I was going to congratulate the 10. Mags, I know you. We got a 5. We've got a 0. Not so pleased. So a 1. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was born. At a 3. Erica's in Portland. Ooh, now there's like, I'm going to start rolling quickly. All right. I am not seeing a lot of high numbers here, and that is not a surprise to me. And this is why I asked the question. Da, 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 da. Oh, I love these answers. Okay. As you are going to scroll through this, you will see that we are literally all around the world, and we are almost without exception not very satisfied with where we are at the writing level. Kylo just came in at an 8. I'm actually pretty happy with my productivity at the moment. I may have missed a 9 or a 10, but you may be one of the highest in there. The reason I ask this kind of question, I frequently ask the scale question. What's your energy level at? What is your contentedness at right now? Scale of 1 to 10. The reason I ask this is it is easy for our brains to come up with a number that makes sense to us, which is weird. That should be I don't know what number it is, but we usually kind of know where on that scale we fall. And number two, it shows us as we think about these questions over and over again, the fact that it doesn't matter. I am often at a 3 to a 4 for contentment about my writing. And the truth is, I get my writing done, I show up, I'm happy with my writing, and I produce books. The emotions that I feel, we're going to talk a lot about this, the emotions that I feel about writing are real and they are mine, and they are also something that I can set to the side and just write. Do a little bit of tiny, tiny, scrappy first draft writing. So thank you for asking that. I'm going to share a little quote with you all, which if you've worked with me before, you know this is one of my very favorite quotes in the world. Start writing no matter what. The water does not flow until the faucet is turned on, by Louis L'Amour. This is so true about everything. The water doesn't flow until the faucet's turned on. The writing doesn't flow until you write. The inspiration doesn't flow until you do some writing. Um, we could see this in all other places in our lives. I don't want to cook dinner until I am cooking dinner, and suddenly I am enjoying cooking dinner, and then I want to cook dinner. Anne Marie is singing, "You've got to prime the pump." Exactly. All right, so the reason that I wanted to do this workshop right now at this time, not on the first day of January, because nothing has to be perfect, is because I spent years and years and years, probably from the time I was 21 till I was about 35, so 14 solid years, um, absolutely believing that my process was broken. And not only that, that everybody else's processes weren't, and that I just had to find the right one for me, and I just hadn't found it quite yet. Once I found the right process, once I found the right planner, once I found the right place inside my soul to find the motivation to write, then I'd finally get it done. Then, and only then, I would have great ideas and my writing would be strong and I would have the right amount of time. So I spent those years getting ready to write, hoping to write, studying writing, thinking about writing, being frustrated about writing, but not actually doing the writing. And I I have an MFA in writing. I did 2 years in the ivory tower talking about high level writing. And no one ever told me that it was okay to not feel good about writing, to not feel good about my writing, to not feel good about wanting to do the writing. Nobody ever mentioned that to me, that not wanting to write, and when I did it, feeling not good about my writing was normal. I thought, because I was, this is a normal thing to think, I thought those feelings meant I probably shouldn't be writing or I wasn't ready yet to write. What I didn't know was they were proof I was a writer. That is the proof. That is the actual proof that arises. Because I always say this, but non-writers do not worry about this. Non-writers don't lie in bed thinking about how much they don't want to write and how that means they're not a writer. You know how often they think that? Never, never, ever, ever, ever do they think that. Only writers think that. We are writers and it is normal. And I think it's my life's purpose to tell people that if you feel like you don't want to write and you're frustrated about getting yourself to the page, and when you get there, you are let down by your words, congratulations, you are 100% a writer who is being and living inside a writer's brain and soul. You are all writers. Every single person here is a writer. There are some of you who are like, yeah, duh, Rachel, I'm a writer. Of course I'm a writer. I know I'm a writer. And then there are some of you who are like, ah, I wish that was true, but Rachel doesn't actually know. Rachel thinks I am, but I'm actually not. I know you are. I absolutely know you are. And I would like, and I know it's cheesy. Please go with me. I do some cheesy things sometimes. If you are alone, I would like you in one moment to say, I am a writer. If you are where you could be overheard, please don't, because I would want to die if I did that, but you could whisper it. If you are in a place in one moment that you can't say it or whisper it, please type it in the chat. I am a writer. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. I am a writer. Yes. Oh, I love seeing it come in. I love seeing it come in the chat. I'm a writer. You are a writer. There is no question. Hell, yes, you are a writer. Always, always. No one but writers would be here. And there is no, there's no magic writing castle, unfortunately, that we inherit when we say this. Ooh, that's really deep, Jean. I know I'm a writer, but I constantly doubt that I could tell a story. Please let me congratulate you. If anyone constantly doubts that they can tell a story, if that is any of you, that means you are a writer. Again, non-writers, don't worry about that. They don't care. We are writers. Our doubt is proof of that. What we want in our writing life is to be able to move into, be able to exist where we are more comfortably. And and I know that this can be a triggering subject for some, so please protect yourself in any way that I can. But I'm going to talk about the way we fit into our bodies and inside clothing. There's a way that we can punish ourselves in lives, whether we are bigger than we want or smaller than we want, and we wear clothes that don't fit and feel uncomfortable because we're trying so hard to get to the place where we want our body, what we want our bodies to look like. And we do that with writing too. We wear these garments that say, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I can't, it's not fitting into my life. I'm not doing it right. I'm still not doing it right. And another year goes by. I'm still not doing it right. Or in these beautiful bodies that we all live in, we can go get the clothes that feel right, fit well, and make us feel gorgeous in the bodies we already exist, inside those bodies. This kind of writing practice and theory is like that. It is like saying, oh, this is the life I have right now. And maybe in 2 months or 1 year or 5 years, the kids will be gone. I'll have the space. I'll get that room back. I'll get a private place to write. Or I can fit into the space I am now and find the little pockets of writing time that are around me and embrace, literally embrace that feeling of discomfort that happens when I'm thinking about writing or when I am writing and find how to do the writing, find how to write comfortably and sustainably inside the life in which we are right now. That is what we are going to talk about today, but we are already talking about. Here is another quote for you. Oh, this is a good one too. Alita. Oh, Amanda, I love that you cried a little bit when you said that. Oh, gorgeous. Alita says, I guess my issue is that no matter how many times I tell myself that I am a writer, and I know that I am because I'm writing, it still doesn't feel authentic. How can I make that shift? Fantastic question. And what a great illustration of many things that we're going to talk about today. It still doesn't feel authentic. It is not only okay, but it is, I think, necessary for all of us to go, oh, it doesn't feel authentic. That feels sucky. Okay, that's all right. I'll write anyway. Understanding that we want it to feel authentic, noticing that it doesn't feel authentic. I don't feel like an authentic writer, and then setting that to the side and going back to do the writing. That authentic feeling is part of imposter syndrome, and nobody ever recovers from imposter syndrome. And in fact, as writers write more and publish more, what I have seen is our imposter syndrome goes up. We feel less and less authentic as writers. But we, more and more, we don't care. We're like, oh yeah, it's Tuesday morning. I don't feel like I'm authentically anything. I'm certainly not a writer. I'm certainly pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. And then we go and write chapter 7 of a book that will be published if we want it to be. So I love that you said that. Thank you. Thank you. Isabella Allende said, show up, show up, show up. And after a while, the muse shows up too. I love thinking about the critic and the muse. More of that in just a moment, but I want to talk for just a sec here. I'm going to just be dropping small things into the chat here. Waiting for feelings or things that will never come. A few things that I think many of us wait for, that we feel like we need to write include these four things. The first one is inspiration. Not, there are a lot of us who know that we don't need inspiration every day, but I know that I want inspiration every day. I want to wake up and feel those wings beating inside my soul, the wings that will take me into the world of the words. And I always reference this, and I think it's a dated reference, so only some of you are going to go with me on this one. But do you remember Romancing the Stone in the beginning, where she's writing, she's sobbing because it's the end of her romance novel. I can't remember the name, Catherine, and she's typing, and then she writes the sentence on her type. It's an electric typewriter. She writes the sentence something like, and then they fell into each other's arms, and basically lived happily ever after. And then she types, the end. And she pulls the paper out of her typewriter and she's surrounded by Kleenex because she's been sobbing. And you can see her put the paper down on top of the stack of papers, which will then be sent to her editor. Because I thought that's how it worked, that we had to write well, we had to be inspired, write well enough so that when you finish that last page, you can just send it to your editor, that it wasn't all crap. I knew that by seeing things like that, seeing the inspiration that flows over real writers, that if I wasn't having that emotional experience and writing that well on the first try, that it could just then be sent to an editor, that I must be doing it wrong. Joan Wilder was her character's name, and it was Kathleen Turner. How funny that we know the Joan Wilder. Yes, that was exactly it. And that was in my mind as what inspiration looked like, losing oneself in front of one's computer. And perhaps some of you sometimes do that. I always, it's just a Tuesday, and my head is like a little itchy, and my fingers are crinkly, and my back kind of hurts, and my brain just isn't connecting with my fingertips, and I don't know what I'm doing. I do not feel 90% of the time, 95% of the time, like Joan Wilder. But that's not what we see when we think about writing. It's not what we feel. Inspiration, we don't need it to write. It can't be relied on. It's not going to show up to save the day. However, we can court the muse. We can court inspiration. We'll talk about that in just a second. Another thing that I was really guilty of waiting for or trying to manufacture was determination slash discipline. I thought that I would eventually get the discipline I needed to become the writer who wrote 1,500 words a day or 4 pages a day or whatever the thing was. I would finally figure out how to basically whip myself into the shape and finally stop being lazy, a lazy procrastinator. I thought that you had to make a plan and stick to it. And here's the thing that I see a lot of writers struggling with. We are told by the world at large, in all parts of our lives, not just in writing, that we need to make a plan and stick to it. And if we do not stick to it, then that is failure. You have failed. Now you have failed in the plan. We are also told, and we infer from what we see around us, that if we're failing, then that is the proof we shouldn't be doing the thing. So again, we're told we need to make a plan and stick to it. And if we fail, when we fail, if we fail, that is proof we shouldn't be doing the thing. That we don't know enough yet. And as writers, we haven't figured it out. We don't know the plot yet. We're not good enough writers. We should probably learn some more things. The proof is actually, it's the opposite. The fact that we're failing and continuing to try is proof that we are writers, but nobody tells us that. There are a few writers who come by discipline naturally and honestly, and it feels good to them. They are just disciplined people in many areas of their lives. Show of hands, is there anybody here who's just like, yeah, I'm the disciplined person in the group? Okay, on the page I'm looking at. Okay, I see a few. I see a few. Yes, yes. And they know who they are. They're like, yes, that would be me. Most of us are not that way. I would like to borrow some of that discipline. But in life, again, we're told that that's a failure. You shouldn't be doing it. It is the opposite. The discipline comes through doing the work naturally and making it feel good. We're going to talk more about that. But I want to keep moving through these things. The third thing that we wait for that doesn't come is that time affluence, that feeling of, oh, I'm finally going to figure out when and where I will put my writing. I've talked to so many people who say, I'll be able to do this in 6 months when X, or I'll be able to do this in 2 years when X. No, you won't, is what I want to tell them. And sometimes I have the bravery to tell them that in person, but sometimes I don't because it feels really rude. We will not have a better time in the future. For the most part, we will not have a better time in the future. I have always noticed and you've seen this too, and it's frustrating, but the busier people are, the more they get done. I wrote more books when I was working full time. When I went to be a full-time writer, my book production slowed down because our work expands to fill the time that we have for it. But I've written full books and I've seen you do it. And I've seen so many people do it in the little pockets of their lives that already exist because that is the only time we have. Perhaps you will have more time in 2 years when X happens, but perhaps you won't. And you can't put off writing in the little pockets of life now, hoping for more time later. The time affluence is not something to wait for. The lovely thing is that the more I write, the more I get my writing done, even if it's 15 minutes in the morning, the feeling of time affluence then joins me for the day. I think, oh, I had time to get my writing done. Fantastic. And the fourth thing that we are all, I don't usually say all, but perhaps all of us are waiting to have more of or wishing to have more of is confidence slash enough encouragement. We will never have enough confidence. We will never have as much encouragement as we want. I wish that I had somebody sitting next to me all of the time when I wrote saying, oh my God, you wrote that? Oh, that is incredible. And if I had somebody that I really respected sitting here doing that the whole time I wrote, oh my God, Rachel, you're amazing. What a genius. Not only would I not believe it, but it would get irritating and it wouldn't be enough. I know that if they said that to me for 8 hours a day, at hour nine, I would be like, are you sure? Are you sure? I don't think. Are you sure you meant that? We will never have enough confidence. We will never get enough encouragement to do this, and we don't need it. Understanding that we will never have it and doing it anyway is the magic. All right, I'm going to share another beautiful quote with you. Da, 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 da. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with all the comments, but Danielle, I will later. Rachel, you said that December was a bit of a write-off for you, pun intended. So how do you decide when to leave off your writing routine for a bit and not even try to squeeze it in the cracks, and when to try a bit harder and write in the little pockets? That is such a good question. It's usually after a large existential meltdown, like the stress that happens. Like I needed to do this, which for me was to get a certain number of chapters ahead in my book. And then where am I going to fit it? And as I'm having that existential crisis panic thing happen, remembering that that is an emotional reaction to it, which is fine. And then I can step back, and we're going to talk more about this, but step back, look at it and say, do I actually need to do this? And once I ask the question, do I need to rejigger? Then I can say, this is under deadline. I need to fit it into the pockets. Or I can say, I do need to rejigger, but it's not under deadline. How shall I push it out? We're going to talk more about that in the scheduling part of it. But what it requires to this question, what it requires is the noticing and the asking the curious question kindly. Do I need to change things a little bit? Shall I change things a little bit rather than getting super, super rigid about it? Many of us go rigid and hardcore and beat ourselves up to do something. And others of us, and I'm both of these people, others of us just let go. We're like, oh, screw it. It's all done. It's whatever. I give up. And not being somewhere in the middle of I give up and I will never let go, noticing that tension and asking ourselves, do we need another rejigger? Okay, I'm going to drop this quote into the chat. Somerset Mom said, I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. Inspiration figures out where to find us. I've mentioned a little bit this idea of emotional regulation in writing. This is another thing I wish they had talked to me about in our MFA. I thought I had to find the feelings I needed in order to write, the strong, sturdy, beautiful feelings. We will not find those feelings before we write. The clue, the gift to us is that I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat because I think it's important, and I will copy and paste the important things in here. But this will all be recorded and sent to you as well. But the emotional discomfort that you feel is a lovely clue to you being in the right place. When we feel the emotional discomfort around writing, it is a clue that you're in the right place. That kind of discomfort, and when I'm talking about that emotional discomfort, is that feeling of like, oh, I can't write today. Oh, I don't want to write today. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to write. It's not going to fit into my day today. I can't. It's hard to notice those feelings because they're just all awash in our brain. And then we go, to clean the living room and forget about it. But if we can notice it, we can take that discomfort as its own kind of comfort. It's it's a trick and it takes practice, but noticing that graunching, low-level dread when we are trying to get to the page is a beautiful clue that, oh yeah, welcome, discomfort. You're here. That means I should probably be writing. A quote that I share a lot is from Stephen Pressfield's The War of Art. Lisa says, I feel that discomfort most days. I always feel I should be writing when I am not. Before I put the quote in, I think it was Susan Sontag who said, writing is the only thing that when I am doing it, I don't feel I should be doing something else. I never get over that one. All right, here's the quote from Stephen Pressfield talking about resistance. Like a magnetized needle floating on a surface of oil, resistance will unfailingly point to true north, meaning that calling or action it most wants to stop us from doing. We can use this. We can use it as a compass. We can navigate by resistance, letting it guide us to that calling or action that we must follow before all others. Rule of thumb, the more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel toward pursuing it. Yes, Alita, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Exactly. So resistance, I love how he talks about this. We can actually use it as a pointer. And of course, we feel different kinds of resistance to different kinds of things. I feel resistance about talking to that relative over there because they make me so unhappy. That's a different kind of resistance. I don't think that's resistance saying, go talk to that person who is actually quite abusive. That's self-preservation. But the resistance we feel in ourselves, we can tell in a gut what kind of resistance it is. That is our inner voice, that inner critic trying to keep us safe and therefore throwing up these roadblocks, saying, oh, not today. How about tomorrow? Not today. I promise 7 in the morning, I'm going to write for 1 hour. And the next morning at 7 in the morning, something comes up and we don't do it. Um, there, I want to tell, do I have time for this story? I'm watching the time carefully. Um, yes. So I will tell you really quickly. I was at a writing conference many years ago, 2006. I had finished a manuscript. No, it was 2008. I'd finished a manuscript and I'd done nothing with it. And I was listening to Eric Maisel speak, who is a fantastic motivational speaker. He writes a lot about creativity. All of his books are great. Eric Maisel, put him in the chat. And he had this story that he had been talking to a writer who said she needed to write at night because she didn't have time in the morning and she needed to write at night, but she wasn't doing it. And Eric Maisel said, so I told her to write in the morning because if she told herself to write at night and she wasn't doing it at night, then obviously that wasn't her best time in her life right now to write. So she had to do it in the morning. And I had this fit in my seat because at that point I was working 12-hour shifts with an hour and a half commute on either side. So 12 plus 3, that's 15 hours that was spent out of the house. And I had to be at work at 6. So I needed to leave my house at 4:30. And I thought in the morning, and I would work till 6 p.m. And I thought I can't get up any earlier than I am already getting up at 4. I can't. And like I can't do it. And then my next thought was this, and I'm not telling anybody to get up this early. This is absolutely not the point of the story. The next thought I had was, oh, I'm never going to write if I don't change something. I'm never going to write if I don't change something. And so I started getting up. You may have heard me tell this story like 15 or 20 minutes early. I swore I would never get up at a number that had a 3 in it, but I started getting up at 3:45 and I would get 15 minutes to write before I went. And I got the work done. And then shortly thereafter, I found my agent, and that is when I started writing all the time. But it was this moment that it was a moment in which I made a decision. Here's the thing about writing and the decisions we make. We treat writing, this is important, we treat writing as if it is a decision we make every day, whether or not we're going to be a writer. That is exhausting. It is, and many of you have made this decision, and I know it because I've worked with you. But it's much simpler to make one decision, like I did when I was listening to Eric Maisel, which was, oh, I actually need to take this seriously and just be a writer. And sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, and sometimes I'm not going to like it. Rather than waking up every day and deciding, am I a writer? Am I a writer? Should I write? How do I write? I don't do that about my job. I don't do that about my marriage. I made a decision once to get married. And then I got married and I stayed married. When we take jobs, we make a decision. We think about it. We think about this job, the offer, what they're going to pay us, where we're going to go. We think about it very carefully, and then we say yes once. And then yes, April, exactly. It's kind of like saying I will decide day to day if I'm going to be a mom. It's really in the cards. Am I supposed to be a mom? Am I a good mom? Should I be a mom? Are there better moms? We don't do that. You made that decision when you decided to bring the baby to term. And then every day you just do the work. The decision has been made, and there's a beautiful letting go that can happen in that. We just show up and do the work no matter what we feel. I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like being married every day. We just show up and do the work. Um, so let's see. I want to skip forward. And the problem is that when we make that decision, when we make that decision for real, whatever it is, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to finish this collection of stories. I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. Like Stephen Pressfield said, resistance and the critic gets loud. The critic is strong and assertive. We all hear very, very similar voices in our heads. And the critic, that inner critic that we hear, is called a lot of things. I've heard it called the donkey, the jackass, the inner critic, the editor, the troll, the gremlin. But the interesting thing to me is that it acts up more and more strongly. The braver and braver we're getting, that is when the critic gets louder. I want to take 2 minutes, just just 2 minutes, maybe three. Um, I would like you to write this down, but not in the chat. Just write it down somewhere. Not in the chat, please, unless you really want to share it, but you don't have to. Um, your resistance profile. What does your inner critic typically say to you? Write down one or two of those. We don't have time for all of them, and I know I've got a lot of them. What emotions arise when you sit down to write, and what physical sensations, if any, accompany writing resistance. I'm going to do 2.5 minutes. Go ahead and start now. About 45 more seconds. Okay, if you would like to share one that you routinely hear inside the chat, you may right now. Just one. And you do not have to. That is absolutely optional. No one, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. No one will read your book. No one cares. Who cares? You're never going to finish. This is a myth. You're not good enough. The story doesn't work. I have nothing unique or interesting to write about. You must be like everyone else. I hear that no one wants to hear the story anyway. I get no one wants to read this all the time. This won't sell. No one will want this. You're wasting your time. You don't know what you're doing. You're not lazy. You are lazy, not productive. Who will find your personal story interesting? Boring. My voice is not a value. You don't know how to tell a story. The reason I love this. That's taking forever. That's crap. This isn't good enough. Everyone will be ashamed of me how terrible my writing is. These are so universal. Of course, some of us gravitate towards oh, Barbara, yes. Who do you think you are? What the hell? Yes. Liar, liar, pants on fire. It's so good to share. And I am not laughing at any of you or even at this critic's voice. I am laughing in joy that we are so similar. We all hear the same things over and over and over again. Let's talk about what the critic wants. Because I love to think about why we have certain things. Like, I don't think anybody knows why we have a spleen. I don't know if they figured that out, but other things they know why biologically we have these things in our bodies and souls. The critic, we're just going to call it the inner critic today, but you can call it whatever you want. The critic wants to keep us safe. That is all. Oh, interesting. I haven't read that one yet, Anne Marie. The critic wants to keep us safe, and the critic is doing a brilliant, beautiful job. Every single one of you has made it to today, has made it to being in front of your computer. And the critic has a big hand in that. The critic is very smart, and it wants you to not run into traffic. It wants you to not drink green pond water. It wants you to do something. Do all of the things that keep yourself living, that keep yourself alive. It tells you how to drive. It tells you how to walk to avoid doorways most of the time, not all the time. But it's doing a lovely thing for us because it loves us. The critic truly, I do believe, loves us, and it is something that we can be, and I am very grateful for. I really love my anxious, nervous, scaredy pants critic. But it also wants to keep us small. Because when we are small, we are unnoticeable, we are safer. When we are small, the big bad things lurking in the shadows won't see us. We're part of the herd, we're tiny, we're where we should be. And it wants to keep us there. As soon as we have a bigger thought, I could do this, I could try that, our critic says, oh, that's not normal. That's not normal. That's not what people do. That's not normal. So if it's not normal, I must try to pull you in, rein you in, and keep you from doing that because you could get hurt. Our critic also knows us really well, especially when it is something like writing that we really, 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 really want to do, that we've always felt called to do, or that we've recently felt called to do. It knows that it is important. If it knows that it is important to us, it knows that not achieving it or failing at it will hurt us. And it then also needs to protect us and prevent us from doing it. Every time you try to get a little bit bigger, do something new or hard or scary, it will it will launch itself at you to keep you small, to try to scare you, to try to worry you. Everything it says, ooh, Akai, I like this. I feel like the critic is a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms. It kept us safe from something at one point in our lives, but we don't need it anymore, and now it does more harm than good. That's gorgeous. Yes, I absolutely agree. All of the things that the critic tells us are untrue. They are untrue, and that is hard to believe sometimes. But your story is important. People want to hear it. You are the right one to write it. These are things we can only learn as we grow into the story, as we write it, as we let people see our work. But all of the things that the critic says sound very good. They do not sound like lies. We all hear the same thing, and we all, to a certain extent, believe them. Because we do know that it is trying to help. On a gut level, we know that the critic is trying to help. The emotions that those lies bring up in us are real. Feelings are real, as we say, but feelings aren't facts. The emotions are real. Those physical sensations that we feel when we hear that voice or when we sit down to write and fail to write, those are also real and need to be handled and soothed and smoothed. But the things the critic tells us are not true. The problem is, and you know this, your critic is bloody smart. So smart. The critic will always be getting smarter as well. You will never be able to outsmart the critic. And this is one of those really frustrating things that is actually a comfort to me to remember. I can't outsmart my critic. For many years, I tried to argue it. I tried to reason with it. I used to have long conversations with my fears in my journal. Like I would let the fear come and then I would respond to it. And I would say, oh, here's the reason I do feel that I believe I am the one to write this story. And I would write down all of the reasons and I would believe them for at least 3 minutes. And then the fourth minute would come, and the critic would say something like, well, I see your point, but have you thought about this? No, I had not thought about that. And you're right. And you're smart. And I'm going to go back to living in a hole and not writing my book because you're right. Why hadn't I thought about that? I'm so dumb. I should have thought about that. That critic is so good. As we argue, as we argue with that critic, we are losing in two separate ways. We are losing because we are wasting the time and energy we could have been using to write in arguing with it. And we're honestly making it smarter. It's going to win no matter what. It will break us. The only solution is, and there's a wonderful solution. The only solution is to disengage from it, to just disengage. And there are tools for disengaging. I can't say to you, just disengage from your critic and then do that. It doesn't, we all need tools and we will have different tools, but I'm going to suggest three that I really, really like. Something that is important to point out is that the critic is, is not only so smart, but it is also wily. Oftentimes, my critic does not come up to me and say, Rachel, I don't think you should write that the chapter you were planning on doing today because I just don't think you're ready. What it says is, my stepmother's coming over and I should wash the dishes. It says, I really need to get groceries at the grocery store. The critic is so smart that it knows sometimes that I'm really good now at hearing the critic's voice and going, oh, aren't you cute? Okay, yeah, I'll deal with that later. I'm going to ignore you for now. And so it will come in and do other things. It will try to push me other directions. That is how good our critic is. Um, the voice of the critic is sometimes harsh and mean. It is often harsh and rather mean. It is something that you would never say to a friend that you loved and that you believed in. And that's one way we can recognize it. It is harsh and mean. But more problematically, it's often the voice of reason, and it really sounds correct. Um, it's often followed up with but what if that is right? I could see that being right. I could see that really being a problem. It's the voice of reason. It is usually, this is another way to identify it, incurious, and it is black and white. It is, you can't do this. It's not, could you do this? How could you do this? It does not ask interested questions to say, oh, that sounds like a concern. What could be done about that? What could change? Again, we don't want to argue with it or reason with it, but we can recognize it if it is incurious. It's not looking for creative solutions. Basically, it just wants you to stop. So we let it go completely. The critic's voice will never stop, and it will get better and louder and stronger, and it will matter less, I promise. We can learn to ignore it, and it takes practice. It is difficult at first, but just like anything else, we learn how to do it with practice, and it actually gets enjoyable. So let's talk about my three favorite tools to ignore the critic. I'm going to drop this into the chat. Here's number one. Ellen says, sorry, I'm not keeping up, but Ellen says, oh, gads, it's my mother. Often it's a parent, and often I have heard it is a mother, which makes it really sensible sounding in your head, right? Just like you heard that voice a long time and were practiced at believing it. Okay, so the first tool to ignore the critic is mental push-ups. We're not going to do this right now, but I'm going to describe, and I've done this for some of you before. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to describe what secular meditation is, not spiritual meditation, just secular meditation, the way scientists talk about doing push-ups for your brain. If you're doing secular meditation, you are literally doing these little tiny push-ups, making your brain stronger. And there are 3 steps to this kind of meditation, and they're very simple. I'm going to drop them into the chat. Number 1 is you sit or you lie down, whatever. Number 2, you focus on the breath or you focus on something, anything at all. Number 3, you get distracted by sound or feeling or thoughts. People think in meditation they have failed when they get distracted. That is wrong. Getting distracted and realizing it, that is meditation. When we realize we've been distracted and we go back to focusing on the breath, that is one tiny little push-up that our little brain has done. For me, I can have, I'm going to try not to exaggerate. I love to exaggerate, but I can probably get distracted 3 times in 2 seconds. I'm not kidding. And perhaps some of you are like that too. But every time we get distracted and remember to go back to what are doing, that is a tiny push-up. Yes, Alita, I actually started out with Headspace. That's where probably 7 or 8, 9 years ago, I started with Headspace. It's a really, really nice app for that. Here is the writing mental push-ups, which is basically the same thing. We sit down or you stand up at your standing desk or lie down in your recliner, wherever you are. You focus on your words and you get distracted by the voice or the feeling that tells you, or the child perhaps, or the job, or whatever, that tells you to stop. You notice it, you focus again until you get distracted again. This can happen 100 times during a session. Oftentimes when I am either meditating or writing, the distraction takes a long time. I can go into distraction and start thinking about my shopping list for 2.5 minutes. Oh, I notice it. I go back to meditating or writing, depending on what I'm doing, and I focus on that for 4 seconds, and then I start thinking about the shopping app again, the shopping list again. It doesn't matter. It does not matter how long we are distracted. It does not matter how many times it takes us to go back and focus, whether you were distracted twice during your session or 2,000 times. In fact, could we argue that getting distracted 2,000 times might be a little bit better because you're doing 2,000 push-ups instead of just 2? Perhaps. The reason I point this out is the more that I have done this in my life and in my meditation practice and in my writing practice, the easier it is for me to write, to sit down, get distracted by the critic's voice, and just say, well, now I'm going to ignore that and go back to writing. It gets easier and easier every time, every month, every year. It's getting a little bit simpler. We're always going to be distracted by life. We're always going to be distracted by the critic's voice, but this is always a tool. Okay, so I asked you in that email to bring a box or some kind of container. This is what I call the suggestion box. Does anybody want to hold up what they have? I see Anne Marie's. Oh, we got a cup there. You do not have to have one if you did not bring one. It's absolutely fine, 100% fine. Oh, I love seeing all these. Oh, they're fabulous. All the different kind of shapes and sizes. I see a Tupperware. I see glass. I found this in an antique shop. I think it's old. It was $4. I think it's old cards, old and it was probably sewn together in the 50s. It has a kitten inside and it's covered with kittens. So this is my suggestion box. The critic is a helper. The critic is a friend, and the critic has kitchen kittens. And the critic has good ideas. So I don't want to tell the critic that he can just go, jump off a log and we'll never see him again. I don't do this all the time anymore. I used to do it all the time. And your mileage will vary. But when I am battling getting to the page, sometimes the only thing I do is I sit down and I say, I'm going to take suggestions from the critic. And I like to use Post-its or little pieces of paper. What I do is I write the critic's suggestion on the piece of paper and I put it in the suggestion box. And there it can sit until I am done with my writing. Um, there are different ways you can use this. You can take them out at the end of each session. And I did finally, I want to say maybe Mindy recommended this. Waitress Spike. I got one of these. And yeah, I finally found one at the same antique store actually, and I just stabbed them on, which is really satisfying. I have in the past, these are also what I use for like problems in a book. So I'm stabbing all of my post-its these days because it's fun. Or you can leave them in the box to kind of settle. You can ceremoniously burn them once a week. You can throw them away and redo it every day. You can do whatever you would like, but I do recommend having something on your desk or a document. I'll talk about that in a second. And naming it. And as I was as I was brainstorming actually with Lala about this, ooh, Sarah calls it the distraction list. Yes, it's amazing. Sarah says how unimportant they all feel when you're finally done writing. They feel like they will kill you before you start writing. They all feel real, immediate, dangerous, and true. When you put them in the box and say, okay, just sit here while I do a little bit of writing, and then I'll come back and I will handle you. I will take all your suggestions very seriously. They do not feel seriously when you're done with your writing practice. So I was brainstorming with Lala some of the things that we could call this box. I just call it the suggestion box because I love that. Because haven't you worked jobs where they had a suggestion box? Nobody cares. You put the suggestion, nobody is going to read that or act on it. Yeah, but it's satisfying for the person who needs to complain. The critic needs to complain and needs to be heard and then needs to be ignored. So this is locked away. I have also seen suggestions in other places where you actually get up before you write and put this in another room. Try that. If it's too close to you on your desk, move it to the other room and then go back to it. But here's a list, a very fun list. And one's cheeky, so forgive me, that we came up with yesterday. The suggestion box, the troll trap. This is Lala's, and she insisted it goes on here. Dick in a box. Because it is yeah. The snark tank, the grumble bin, the gripe garage, the bother box, the grouch pouch is very, very cute. The wine cellar, the nag bag. Oh, yes, Elita. Now I want that. I was thinking of finding one of those joke suggestion boxes on Amazon. If it's one of the joke suggestion boxes that you put things in, but there's absolutely no way to get them out. That's okay. Now I want one of those. That is such a great idea. Some people, some of you, I would love it if all of you had something like this. Some people, however, will not respond well or just doesn't fit in your life to have a physical item because you write in many places. You're not going to take it around. I do suggest having a document that is not quite attached to the document you're writing in. So if you use Scrivener and you're writing in the same book all the time and you've got lots of scenes, then you could have it as a Scrivener scene. It wouldn't be inside your actual work, but it could be in there with your research and your ideas. It could be a separate Word document or Google document on your desk, and you could just call it the suggestion box. And every time before you sit down, you go and list some of them. Um, and then we put them aside for this time. So right now, I'm going to ask you if you have a box and a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, whatever you have there. Great, let's try it. If you prefer to do it digitally, go ahead and open up an app anywhere. It could be a note on your phone. Um, and then I'm going to ask you to write one worry that you've had about yourself or your writing or this particular workshop that you've had while we've been sitting here. Like it could be, Rachel doesn't know how bad it is for me. It could be, I don't think this stupid suggestion box crap will work. Or I worry that I'm here at this workshop and it's actually not going to change things for me tomorrow. I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to write down one thing, either digitally or on a piece of paper so that we can put it away. Go ahead. When you're done, I'm done with mine. I'm going to pop it into my suggestion kitty kitchen box. Please go ahead and pop yours in your box or your jar or type it into your digital place. And then I want us to put it away in a place we're not going to look at it again for the rest of this session, which is one more hour. All right. I do like to make sure that people have their needs met, and I feel the need to offer a biological break. Should we do that for like 3 minutes in case? Yeah, let's do a 3 minute bio break. Run, get you what you need, and then we're gonna come right back. I'm so glad you're here. Here we go. Okay, I will send my voice booming out to people getting drinks and coming back. I'll start again in about 30 seconds. Liz, I just noticed you're knitting. That's lovely. Oh, excellent. All right. As people are rejoining, I will just mention something funny that I was playing with yesterday. If I could say this to all of the things that go into, why is this not letting me copy? Into my suggestion box, I would. Um, but I won't have time and I won't remember to do it, but I'll share it with you. This is what I would like to say to all of those nagging little things that the critic says to us that we put on a piece of paper or write in a document and then set aside just for while we're writing. We can say, thanks for your suggestion. It has been forwarded to our after writing department. Please enjoy the hold music while creativity is in session. Your call is important to us, and if you have any other suggestions, please select from the following options. Press 1 to continue writing anyway. Press 2 to continue writing anyway. Press 3 to continue writing anyway. For all other options, please continue writing anyway. That's what we're doing with these suggestions. But that is honestly, that's funny to talk about right now. But here's what I actually do with those suggestions every time I write one down. I think or say, sometimes I say, thanks, but I've got this right now. Thanks, but I've got this right now. My my slip. Thanks. Thanks, critic. but I've got this right now. I'm saying I'll come back to it later if I need to, but not right now because right now I'm writing. Okay, so there were three. So we had the little mental push-ups, we have the suggestion box, and the third one is very simple. And you may have used this before. Welcome back, everybody. But the third one is don't claim it, name it. We want to try to delete the I, quote unquote, I, from that critical, nervous, anxious critic's voice because my critic's voice comes through as I'm not a good enough writer. If I catch that thought and reframe it, I can say, my inner critic thinks I'm not a good enough writer, which really puts space between that statement of quote unquote fact. My book is doomed becomes, oh, my inner critic is freaking out and thinks my book is doomed. That's much easier to handle. And I will say that this is a tool I try to remember, and then I often forget. But again, it comes down to remembering to give the critic a little bit of power in giving them some paper, giving them some crayons to play with while you're working, letting them have their say, taking the suggestion, putting it away, reframing it as my critic thinks this, and then sitting down and doing the work. We ignore, we don't want to ignore all of our feelings, but we want to ignore these kinds of feelings because they go away when we write. All right, so how then do we get to the page while we're ignoring the critic? Because there's really two big parts to what we're talking about today. We're talking about how we're kept away from the page, but once we understand some of the things that are keeping us from the page, mostly that unpleasant emotional state that comes from the critic trying to keep us safe, how do we actually get to the page once we are aware that that is happening? Here's the thing, as humans, we will always default to doing the easier thing. We are living beings. We will always try to avoid suffering. That's how we are built and programmed. And writing is a little bit harder than doing the dishes. It has more decisions than getting online and doing some shopping. We will default to doing the easier thing. So it can be very, very useful to set up systems that don't require discipline. Again, we don't want to have to try to decide to be a writer again today. Instead, we have systems that we set up that don't require us to make decisions. Very small systems that we can continually tweak and adjust and try to fit into our actual very real and messy lives. We want to fit this writing again into the life that we have. It would be fantastic if all of us could get, 4 hours of writing every 2 days and sit down and get it. But most of us are not going to get that. We're going to find 15 minutes here, 45 minutes there. And that is all we need, but we do need to be looking for it. So we set up systems to make sure that we use our actual lives well. And I'm going to present to you a system that is kind of a scaffolding. Everybody's systems will eventually look different, but your system will protect your practice while at the same time honoring the fact that we miss our goals in our systems all the time. A system has to be set up for, and I hate this word, but I don't hate this word. I don't want to scare anybody with this word. Our systems have to be set up for the failures that we will bring to them. Our systems have to be able to hold the days where I'm like, I had it all set up and I did nothing because I didn't want to do anything. So there, my system is robust enough to go, okay, cool. We rejigger. How do we set up that system? We do want to think about tracking reality kindly. Again, not in the quarterly, monthly, weekly, hourly way, but watching what we actually do. I cannot expect my whole life to change just because I'm using wishful thinking as a planning tool. I think I've always used wishful thinking as a planning tool. It is not the best tool in my toolbox. Our own lives are not keeping us from writing. Our own busyness, Our own lives are not keeping us from writing. Our emotions, which are deep and often hidden, and they are narrated by the critic, those emotions are what keeps us from writing. Please remember again, missing the goals that we set for ourselves is part of the proof that you are a writer. If you set goals for yourself as a writer and you miss them, congratulations, you are a writer. That is proof. I take great joy in knowing that. So I really like to think about reality versus fantasy in time management. I love to go into the fantasy part of it, but then I actually have the reality. I am very happy if I get 15 to 20 minutes, 4 days a week on the book that I am excited about. That is truly what I'm going for. And when I'm actually buckling down to write, I try to get 2 hours 4 times a week. I may get more of any of that, and oftentimes I get less, but it's not that much because that is reality. I also like to think about finding those small windows and having small goals, minimum viable goals. Mariah, who is here, is a master at the minimum viable goal of 5 minutes can actually change our lives versus perfect conditions. I would always rather get an enjoyable 5 minutes than a craptastic clinging to my clinging by my fingernails to the 2 hours I'm wrestling with to try to stay at the page. A joyous 5 minutes is better for everyone. So let's talk about reality tracking and the three tools that we do use and the fourth that we don't use. I'm going to drop this in the chat. Um, a calendar for planning, a tracker for data, regular analysis. I know it sounds so boring, but it's useful. And wishful thinking is the tool we don't use anymore. We can enjoy doing it, but we don't want to use it. All right, moving quickly. Again, I'm going to give you suggestions. Your mileage will vary. I suggest using a calendar. Some people hate calendars. And if you hate calendars and you're getting enough work done and you're happy with it, great. Then you do not even need to try a calendar. But if you're not getting quite enough, as much as you want done, then do try this. I did send you a printout of a calendar that I put into Rachel Says Plan every month. And I'm going to explain it a little bit. So it's a little bit counterintuitive. I'm going to bring it up in front of us. I'm going to share my screen. Boop, deep, boop. Share. And my calendar is, hang on, please. To share with you the correct one. There it is. All right, I can see, let's see, Sean McKinnon, I can see you. Can you see the thing that says January 2025 here? Great, perfect. So this is what I sent out. The thing about this calendar is it is blank. I really like to suggest that we have either digital or printoutable forms of this calendar. This is not the calendar I use to live any part of my life except writing at all. I use a Google Calendar for everything. My brain is my Google Calendar. Everything's on there. My work, my teaching, my writing, uh, friends, doctor's appointments, everything is there. But once a month, usually at the very beginning of the month, or sometimes a few days in, but very rarely beforehand, I will look at this calendar and I will look at the weeks and I will cross off in some way, shape, or form. It's very simple. This is so simple. I'll cross off all the days I know and I have learned that I will not write. Here are some reasons I will not write. I will not write on weekends because I just like taking weekends off. I will not write on days that I travel for anything, even if I tell myself I will not do it. I will not write when I have family in town, apparently. And I also will not write on days that I can predict will be very stressful. So I just cross them off. Sean, I can see you again. I'm not sure if my screen share will, did the calendar change or do I need to cancel out? Does it have blue on it now? Does not have blue. Okay. So here is what mine looks like when I mark mine digitally because I can never be bothered to dig out my computer. Does it show blue now on the calendar? Perfect, thank you. So this is how I do it. I just make these little boxes digitally and move them around. But for January, these days are already gone. I could easily look, today's the 4th, most places. So those days I don't need to count. I mark out the days I know I won't be here. And great, now I just do accounting. This is 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16. I had different days here. But my hope is that I'm going to be doing fast draft terrible words. Here, I put down the number of days I have. I add some buffer days. What are buffer days? Buffer days are days I wish I would write, but probably won't because I'll get a migraine or I will just get a wild case of I don't want tos. So then I've got 16 days to write. If I would like to write a very fast draft, and this is not going to be most people's mileage, nor does it have to be, uh, but if I'm going to write half of a book in this month, that's a daily goal for these days of 2,800 words. This can easily say 5 days, 15 pages, 3 pages. Your mileage will vary. It is just kind of the reason I love doing this is it's always kind of shocking because at the beginning of a month, I have a whole month. But then when I look at the actual days I will spend doing my writing, whether on that writing day it is going to be a 20-minute writing day or a 2 to 3 hour writing day, I only have these days. So it does help me remember that each day does count. I also give myself grace, like I said, for the migraines, things that will happen. You can use, Faith says that if there was an attachment on the email, it didn't come through. I am sorry about that. It should have, and I think I remember not because I sent yours quickly. I will send that to you. If anybody didn't get that attachment, I will send it to you. Um, it is just useful to have the blank, blank, blank calendar and pick out the days that we will work. The next thing that we do is um, we want to and this is the hard one, but again, if you haven't tried this, it is astonishing how well it always works. It astonishes me once a month. I put the writing times in my daily calendar. I will put into my Google Calendar or into what I usually do is like a bullet journal kind of thing for the week that I plan out. I put the times when I will write. On those days that I plan to write, I write down when I will do it. It doesn't mean I have to, and it doesn't mean I will, because life goes sideways and I'm constantly missing my goals. But if I write them down, I am much more likely to show up and do the work. If I plan to write for 11 days in a month, I need to find those 11 days. And I need to find the time on those 11 days. And it sounds so boring, but and it sounds like a thing that we can do in our heads. I can't do it in my head. I won't show up for it. If I just do it in my head, I must write it down somewhere. So that's the calendar part of it. The next part is the tracking. And I like to talk about realistic tracking. There's one thing to plan out a whole year with your pie in the sky goals, but there's another thing about tracking and then holding yourself with so much pride for writing 700 words that month, if that was all you got done. I think in December, on the actual book I'm writing, not just, essays or whatever, I probably wrote less than 2,000 words. That's what I'm going to guess. And I thought I would write a lot. And I don't mind because I know how to rejigger again and do the next month's calendar again. Yes, Lori, I will show you the chart for tracking. So there are a couple of there's one that I really like, and I want to show you this. This is not mine, it is a paid service. But people have heard me wax rhapsodic about it before. It's called pacemaker.press. And I am going to show you Pacemaker. Let's see now. Oh, Sean, I've still got you in my screen here. Does it say First Draft 7 Miracles? Perfect. This is pacemaker.press. Pacemaker.press. It is a paid service, although I think you can do 1 or 2 projects for free, so you can try it out for yourself. But this is my schedule for when I wrote the first draft of 7 Miracles. I was trying to do it fast. I put in that I wanted, I see here that I knew that I wanted 90,000 words and I didn't quite hit that because I got close enough to the end to call it the end. But every day I would go in and put in the words. And so you can see on Wednesday, the April 27th, I started off strong with 4,286 words. And then I wrote a good number of words for these 5, it looks like 7 weeks. I did the whole book. Every time I would sit down, it would readjust to tell me how many words I needed to do on the days that I was going to write. This is for a big, strong go at writing, right? And does it switch, Sean, when I switch screens inside? Does it now say ephemera first draft at the top? Oh, perfect. Okay. Um, I want to show you this really exciting thing. So this was from 2024. I have this little thing that I play for 15 minutes and I get words just for 15 minutes. I started it in February. I didn't think of it until February. And my goal was I just made up an arbitrary goal of 90,000 words for the rest of the year. And I would put down how many words I got when I was playing in those 15 minutes. 520, 615, 512. I didn't play all the days that I wanted to. Played some of these days. May was pretty good. June, I got some very small words. August, I just gave up. I don't know what happened. I did it once in September, a few times in October, once again at the end of December. But here's the thing, is these 500 words, this 600 words added up to 58,000 words over the course of the year of just playing, of just having fun. And I was tracking it as I went. I do not beat myself up for any of the days that I missed, but I'm happily tracking and grabbing what I did find. Um, the thing about Pacemaker is it will change. I won't show you how it all works because we don't have time for that. But if you change what you're going for, like say, so this is an average of 437 words for this right here. If I change this that I wanted 200,000 words this year, might be 2 million, it's going to up the words that I need every day from 400 to 971. It does all the math for you. So that is why I like to share Pacemaker. Mindy says, I love it. I use it too. I love Pacemaker. Yeah, it's Alita. It's not the most intuitive. Oh, Claire uses, but I really like it. Track Bear, is also one that I've heard. Let's see, what did you write during the ephemera play? Pacemaker tracking. That was just, Cheryl and I was just playing with ideas. I wouldn't call it words that I would put in a book. Just, just playing. Okay, but the thing I want to share with you all is a tool that I'd like to give you. And and this is a lesson in not trying to do too much. I love a Google form and I love a Google Sheet. And I tried to make a Google form that would feed into a Google Sheet that you could go in and every day put your words and what you did and how it went. And then you'd have all this analysis on the back end. And Ellen was helping me with it. And then I realized the perfect was becoming the enemy of the good. And we can just use a Google Sheet. This is not for you if you don't want to use it, but I will offer it. Thank you, Ellen. I will show it to you all. I'm calling it the Paper Trail, and it is loosely based, but with some more math, on Gregory Martin's old idea of the treadmill journal. And I know Beverly is here. I've lost you on the screen, Beverly, but I think Beverly told me about this a million years ago. So this is here we go. I'm going to share my screen and show it to you, and then I'm going to give it to all of you if you want to use it. Here it is, the paper trail. Sean, are we good? Thank you for being my tech help person. So here's the paper trail. You can have this. You can make it yours. It's based again on this idea of the treadmill journal. You sit down every day that you work, no matter how long it is. You put the date, the start time, and you tell yourself what you're going to work on today. I'm going to work on the second half of the 14th scene, or I'm going to try to revise 500 words, whatever it is. And then you do the work. This is what you do here. Do this part, and then you do the work. Afterwards, put the time that you stopped, how it went. Felt terrible for 10 minutes, then got into flow, whatever you want to say here. Hours worked, this is in hours. So if I worked for half an hour, I'd put in 0.5, and maybe I wrote 700 words or I revised 700 words, whatever it is. And then it's going to tell you your average words per hour. This I find can be very, very useful. It'll change. Some days you'll be writing very slowly and some days you'll be writing more quickly, but your average words per hour will eventually fall into a certain range, and you will know how much you write per hour, which can be very, very useful, real tracking information. And then we write when and where you'll work next, what you're going to be working on, and for how long. And this kind of wheel keeps us going. It means that we're always thinking about what we're going to do. We're thinking about how it went, without much judgment. We're just tracking stats. These are facts, and we're being gentle with them. But we're also seeing continual forward progress. So this is something that I will share with you after the class. I'm going to send this to you as well as a bunch of other links. Oh, Beverly learned it from Greg in grad school. Treadmill journal was my frenemy. Beverly, do you mind coming off mute and just say what you got from it? Yeah, you got
Yeah, sure. So, Greg had us do this with an expectation. It was a nonfiction writing workshop, and the expectation was 3 hours a day,
it. Ooh.
6 days a week,
Oh,
seven, because why wouldn't you want to? And it was always impossible, because
it was.
you're taking so many other classes. But what it gave me was really understanding that when I finish my time for the day, taking a few minutes to think, okay, next time I sit down to write, here's where I should probably start. That way you just don't sit down and go, oh, what am I going to do today? You
Mhm.
might be like, okay, I got to read 2 pages to get back in that voice, and then I have to work on XYZ. So I think it's a terrific tool, and I love that you put it in spreadsheet form that does some magic mathing for you. It's
Magic,
awesome.
magic mathing is. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. So it must be more than like 15 years ago. Thank you, Beverly. The other really cool thing about this is that as you track the how it went, what I learned from doing because I did the treadmill journal for years, um, the how it went was so many days. I was like, crappy writing. I hate everything. Worst day ever. Crappy writing. And then later on, when I would go back through and look what I wrote, it was all fabulous. I mean, not fabulous, but it was editable, it was revisable, it was workable, and my feelings had not mattered. And on that day, I hadn't listened to the critic and the feelings that the critic was trying to put around me and hold me tightly inside myself. And I'd gotten words done. Those words added up. I saw those words just build and build and build. And knowing that I could always come back and do more was absolutely such a game changer for me. You do not have to use a paper trail. There are other things being recommended inside the chat. So please look at anything you want, but do try one. If you are not content with your writing process as it is, do try tracking the things that we want to keep in mind when we are tracking, and this is what the paper trail does, is we want to be truthful, not hopeful. Hopeful is for planning. We want to be truthful, simple. We want to keep it as simple as possible. Like I said, I tried to make that fancy one, and it was you would have all had problems at one point or another. We want to keep it simple, and we want to keep it kind and gentle. All it is a fact-finding mission. We are just going in to see what happened. Oh, yes, Erica says, I have a file in my Scrivener document where I check in at the start and end of every writing session and also go to work out problems I run into in the middle of writing. This is also something I have done when I'm not too worried about tracking the stats, or perhaps I'm using Pacemaker to track the stats for the numbers, but I just have something I call a journal in every book. And for some books, I've gone in every day. I put the date, how I'm feeling, what I'm going to work on. I go do the writing, and then I come back, say how it went. So it's really more internal, less numbers. But like you say, you go to work out the problems. Like when I am completely stuck on something, I'll go to the journal and go, I just can't believe why can't I figure out what to do next? What's going to happen? And free flow, and suddenly the log jam starts breaking up. And Eric, I don't know if you have found this, but um, a lot of times as I'm working that out, I'll actually start typing, writing that then goes into the project itself. You just kind of copy and paste it out because you've tricked yourself into fixing the problem and writing. Um, Jessica says, "What's the advantage of Scrivener versus Word?" I'm still so scared of Scrivener. I will. I have a Scrivener to. I have a tiny. I can't say it. Scrivener tutorial that I will send to everybody if anybody wants to look at it. Basically, it's not a tutorial. It is the bare minimum that you need to know to run Scrivener. And if you like the look of it, then you could try it. The only thing that Scrivener has really going for it is the ability to separate the scenes very nicely and visually, but other programs do that too. There's a way to make Word do it for you. Whatever you are writing in that works is fabulous. You do not have to go into anything new. because it will make your writing easier. It probably won't. It will just be a delicious distraction if you like new apps, which is totally valid. I do like to try a new tool, but I will send that out just for people who like to use it. But if you're using Google or Word or Google Docs or Word or Pages, wherever works. Um, so again, for your tracking, you want to be truthful, keep it simple, be kind, and remember that there are no wrong answers. There's just your process. As you are keeping the paper trail, you will be, if you choose to use it, you'll be learning so much more about your process and your real pace. My real pace in my head is 2,000 words a day, 5 days a week. That's ideal. My actual pace is so much slower than that. I actually can't even tell you. I can usually tell you what my actual pace is per book, but not per day. It's more like 500 to 1,000 words 4 days a week. If I'm not pushing for something, it's not fast and books get done. Um, and then the last part of this, so we had the calendar and the tracking. The last part of this is regular analysis. We we want to track and then plan, basically. We are doing a little bit of planning as we look at every month and every week as we move forward. But the more we know from our tracking about how we work, then we can actually plan a little bit more realistically. I don't know if I'll ever plan completely realistically because I always think I'm going to be a little bit faster than I will be. But what I do is I do a weekly rejigger every single Monday or Tuesday or Sunday, but usually Mondays. I do a weekly rejigger. I use a bullet journal. You can use whatever you want, but I look at the days that I'd already picked to write. Can I still write on those days? That's the first thing I ask myself. Can I still write on the days that I had picked to write? Will I still find that time? If I can't find that time on those days, where will I find that time? Where can I put it? Every week I ask myself, am I behind in the goal I set myself for last week? Guess what? My answer is usually yes. Yes, usually I have missed it in some small or big way. And it is never a problem because Mondays, for me, that's my day, is rejiggering day. That's when I do it. I put myself back on track. I like to say that I am never behind because I'm constantly changing my goal. I'm either going to work faster this week or I'm going to extend out my deadline, one or two of those things. Every single week, I am kindly rejiggering it. Monthly, we make a new plan. I like to use that big blank calendar. This is what we do in Rachel Says Plan. Um, but what I recommend is towards the beginning of a month, make a new plan. If you have planned out the entire month and you are 3 months behind, congratulations on this day of the month. You are no longer behind because you are redoing the whole plan. It is normal to miss the plans. It is normal to miss your goals. And here's the thing, as we are noticing these things on a regular basis, weekly and monthly, if possible, you are winning because the simple truth is that most writers don't write. How many people are resonating with that? Most writers don't write. We want to write, we say we're going to write, and then we don't write. If you are putting a spot on your calendar to think about this at least once a month, even better if it's once a week. Yes, you will still be missing your goals because you are a human writer, but you are continually moving forward because you're continually rejiggering and doing a little bit more. And you are noting, collecting, understanding, and finessing your actual working rhythms, the working rhythms that fit in your life. As you do this, you will be able to do more writing than you are right now, if you want to. And it will be natural and organic and sometimes easy, not always easy, but sometimes easy. So we look at it monthly, we look at it weekly. I also encourage experimenting. Try something like a 90-day goal or a week-long challenge, um, or a year-long challenge. When we are experimenting with time frames, with putting artificial, arbitrary time boxes around things, our behavior changes. They have proven that when we are tracking something, when we are actually watching something and tracking the data, human behavior changes. And that's why we do this. Here is another little tool that I'm going to give you. Let me make sure it is up in front of me. And again, you can use these if you want to, but you don't have to. Sharing my screen to go to Sean. Does this say monthly writing? Okay, great. Um, This is something that we do inside Rachel Says Plan, but you don't have to do it in Rachel Says Plan. You could do something like this. This is a monthly writing analysis. So at the end of January, or you could start it right now and talk about December. January through December, these are just questions I came up with. You can change any of these questions, but these are questions we often talk about. What score would you give your writing last month? What am I most happy about from last month's writing? What would I like to leave behind from last month's writing? What is my main writing goal this month? What processes should I put into place to hit this? Do I have any sub goals or processes desired? Have I calendared my writing time? That's in there for me because I always like, oh yeah, I have to do that. That'll actually get it done. Then I will do the work. What are potential pitfalls this month and can I mitigate them? Do I want to try anything new this month? And what am I excited to do in my writing this month? There are no correct answers here. If you don't like any of these, you can change them, you can add to them. But the point of these questions is to be always looking at this 30,000 foot level at our process in a kind and accepting way that says, it's okay if I'm not exactly where I want to be. It is fantastic that I am here and thinking about my writing and myself as a writer in a kind way. I am ignoring the critic. I'm asking myself some gentle and curious questions, and therefore I am always becoming a better, stronger writer in the way that I need at this moment. Let's see. Sorry, I'm not following all of the chat here. Martika said, what was your buffer days percentage? I did have 3 out of 16. For buffer days, I like to recommend between 20 to 30% of the time you have. I like to take away 20 to, for me, it really needs to be 30% because I get migraines and I don't want to do it days. And that's about 30% of the time. So if I had 100 days to write, I only I do the math for 70 of those days because 30 of those days I won't do it. As you continue tracking kindly, you will learn your actual need for buffer days. There are some of you who are much more disciplined who maybe only need 1 or 2% or 5%. I like 30%, and I could still sometimes go over that. Let me go back to my notes here because I don't want to miss anything, and I want to have time for questions too, because I'm sure that I have missed some. All right, so another quote here. This one's from Henry Matisse. Don't wait for inspiration. It comes while one is working. All right, so now you have made this one-time decision that you will write. It's done. You will write no matter what the critic throws at you. You have a method now for, you have 3 methods for ignoring that critic. They are doing the little mental push-ups. They are having a suggestion box and or they are uh, not naming it for yourself, but claiming it for the inner critic. My book doesn't suck. The inner critic is saying my book sucks. You have also made a calendar. You are doing tracking and analysis, but how do you actually get there day to day? The When we have a huge goal of finishing a book and getting published, if we have a huge goal of finishing a book and getting published, that can actually trip us up. There are studies that show that if we expect an extrinsic reward, a reward that is outside ourselves, that we can't make for ourselves, if we expect or desire an extrinsic reward, it can lower the intrinsic motivation that we have to do the work. The intrinsic motivation, all that means is the inherent motivation and joy that we find in doing the work on a day-to-day basis. It is fine to have those hopes and goals and dreams. It's fine to have them. But if we pin all of our motivation for working today on getting that one thing, then that is not enough of a motivation to keep us coming back to the page. And that's why we stop coming back. This is the same reason that New Year's resolutions fail. We want a big thing to happen in the end, and that is absolutely enough to get us to do the thing for about 3 or 4 days, and then we will fail. But if we set up our daily life, our daily writing life, and when I say daily, I mean um, your writing practice. A lot of us cannot write daily for physical reasons, for mental reasons, for emotional reasons. So when I say daily, when you are scheduled to write, if we can make that showing up be as pleasurable as possible, it starts feeding itself. It starts giving you the dopamine burst that we all enjoy and starts bringing us back. So there are a few ways to do this. I am going to list these out. The first one is and these are kind of simple, but create the circumstances. I want think about listing what works for you. I'm going to go through these quickly so we have time for questions, but list what works for you in your writing space. List what you need to change at the bare minimum. And what is deeply pleasurable for you? How can you bring it into your writing? These sound light and fluffy, but they are important. Things like the right tea or drink of choice, the lighting. Do you read a poem before you start? Do you love your fuzzy slippers? What can make the experience itself actually physically and mentally pleasurable? Writing in an uncomfortable position in an uncomfortable place will eventually prevent you from writing. Music, fabulous. Yes. The next one is use the power of suggestion. I think music really plays into this one. What rituals might help? They've shown that if you set up rituals to get yourself going, like you always sit down, you always have the same kind of tea, you put on the same kind of headphones, you listen to the same kind of music, you light the same kind of candle. Those sound lightweight, but they actually prime your body and mind to respond more easily and more quickly to writing. What rituals hurt? For me, any kind of open loop hurts my writing ritual. If I have a ritual of looking at any kind of social media or my email before I write, I can almost kiss my productivity goodbye because now the open loop has opened for the day. I will never get to the bottom of social media. I will never get to the bottom of my email inbox. And I'm already like, my gut has sunk to the basement. So that is a ritual I must prevent myself from having. Ooh, soundscapes of the ocean. Yes, I use a nice soundscape as well. All right, another thing, and everybody talks about this, and you probably have thought about this for yourself and have hopefully set some of this up. But again, if your writing isn't in the place where you want it to be and you don't have this right now, accountability, get some. I will say quickly, and I will send more information after today is over. But it has a special bonus. You may or may not have seen it, but everybody in this class gets 3 months of Rachel Says Plan for free. And all it is a Slack group where we talk about this stuff and you can ask all the questions and also a once a month Q&A call. All that information will be in there and the calendar and stuff like that. So, that also, Rachel Says Plan includes Rachel Says Write, where we write for 4 hours a week together, if you can. If you've got the times always change, they move around. You may only be able to get 15 minutes of it. You can come and go if it works for you. Um, all right. So, but accountability does really work. Writing with other people, writing London Writers Hour is a great place to write. Having people in your life that you just check in with and you send them a text saying, I'm going to write for 30 minutes and I'm not going to do anything else but write. I'm going to tell you in 30 minutes if I did it. And then texting them when it's done. That helps us write. This is a big one, and I don't think we talk about it enough, but not pushing to frustration. You want to end your writing session on a high note. So, as I mentioned earlier, easily hitting a goal of 5 minutes writing is a million times better than struggling to hit a 2 hour goal of writing where you're just barely holding on. If we always write to the edge of frustration, like, oh, I'm so tired, I can't think of another sentence, I'm done for the day, then you are leaving your desk. And sometimes we have to do that. It will happen sometimes. But if you do that every day, then writing is forever associated. The next morning, when you wake up, writing is associated with that last feeling that you had, which was frustration. But if you write for 10, Kristen, what? But if you have a goal to write for, and I really do this every day, I have a goal to write for 20 minutes, 15 or 20, and I set a timer. And I swear to you, every single time that timer goes off, it goes off because I've got other things to do. Every time the timer goes off, I'm like, oh no, but I'm really having fun. I just got into it. So it leaves me with this feeling of I can't wait to get back to it. And the next day, I get to set the timer and I get to start again. It is life-changing. Please don't write to the end of frustration. And the last one is just move to make a move. Any move. If you're sitting there thinking, I want to write, I should write. How am I going to get myself to write? Just move. Becca Syme does a countdown. She does a five countdown. Five, four, three, two, one. When you hit one, you have to move to do something to do the writing. You open your computer, you reach for your notebook, the very smallest thing you could do, move to make any move to get yourself toward the writing. All right. Da 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 da. We're going to have time for a few questions, so line them up. Why don't you drop any questions that you have in the chat because I probably won't be able to find the ones that you left earlier. But as you are dropping those in there, I want to remind you that you have not been procrastinating because you're lazy or because you're not a good enough writer yet. It's just that beautiful critic of yours tying you into knots. We cannot argue with it. We can't get away from it. It will never stop, but we can ignore it. We can watch and plan to a certain extent and then track the writing that we do in the moment that we have right now. We will not wait for a time when life has more time, when life gets easier. We will do it now. We can get comfy with that discomfort. We do not ever have to feel good about sitting down to write. The feeling, this is probably the most important thing I will say today, the feeling good about writing and the inspiration about what to write next and the huge, beautiful ideas that you have of writing come when you're writing. When you are writing, all of that comes. The good feelings, the inspiration. We have to do the writing and court that, bring it to us rather than waiting for it. We get to move our goalposts all of the time. We are moving them, changing them, letting them become what they want to be. And in doing so, we are continually moving forward towards our goals rather than putting it in a box and walking away and never coming back to it. Um, let's see. Okay, we got questions over here. Oh, that's Mel Robbins. You're right. I heard Becca talk about it, but Mel Robbins says the 54321. It's huge. What bullet journal do you recommend? So if anybody has never gone down the bullet journal rabbit hole, welcome to your new obsession. Just Google bullet journal. I just use a traveler's notebook, and it's the one with the you can see days here, and then this is kind of a blank page on this side, and then I write my main goal, my sub goals, my personal goals, and then I write what's going on each day. And I usually put a lot of stickers, although when my family was in town, it was just an iceberg. But I have like stickers, and it takes me 3 minutes to do this once a week. Yeah, I used to do gorgeous like washi tapes, many stickers, and I just again I wouldn't do it if it was too hard. So I like to just write down what I have to do. And then always, I will say it again, there are always things on this list that I move to the next week because I always miss my goals, but I'm always thinking about them and therefore they're getting done. Yes, April says I make my own, but that could be a time suck and distraction. Ooh, Archer and Olives. I'm gonna have to Google that. Deborah, how to manage family interruptions. It's hard. It's just hard. If you are a parent of small children, it can be almost impossible because you can't just leave them. If they are larger and able to be left in any way, shape, or form, it can be very useful to invest in a very good set of headphones and go out, either to a cafe or to your car or to a library. Um, One thing that works, I know, for a lot of moms that I know is that they do the writing online, like Rachel Says Write or London Writers Hour. They put it on the calendar, and it's an appointment. So it comes up in their calendar, and also they say, "Oh, I have to go get on a meeting. It's a writing meeting." And they're there for 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever it is. It looks official. And if somebody comes in, you can just flip from your document over to the Zoom screen and they can see all the other people in the meeting. Super, super helpful. But family interruptions particularly can do with a bunch of those mental push-ups and think of every single one as a mental push-up when you're done dealing with the emergency. Then you think, that was a mental push-up. My brain is getting stronger, and now I am thinking about what's happening in the scene again. Oh, my brain just got a little bit better at doing this and being gentle with yourself because Yeah, that's hard. Liz says I do a lot of writing in the car. I deliberately go early to pick up the kids and sneak 15 minutes of writing in before. 15 minutes is a magic number. I used to have a little desk that attached to the steering wheel. I only used it when the car was stopped, but you park at a beautiful place and put your laptop on the steering wheel thing. It was fantastic. Um, let's see, more question. Yeah, Jean says writing because writing. Elisa, sorry, one of those is right. Can we talk about specific things we can put in the jar? Should they all be specific and tangible and also positive? E.g., make bed, call a friend, check social media, food shop. So it's like a reward system for writing. And should all the things be positive as opposed to reminding ourselves about the critics' negative comments? Oh, I like to. You could have a jar for that, but for mine. I like to put what the critic says. So therefore, there's an old one in there. What's a blank one? Um, therefore, what I put in my critic's suggestion box are the critical things, the things that actually say, your writing sucks. You will never do this. You will never accomplish your goals. I put it in the box and then I move it away from me. Today, my worry for the class was I worry I will run out of time and that I will have too much time left over. I was worried about both of those things. So I put it in here. And do you see how now I don't really care where I'm going to try to respect your time and get done by the top of the hour? But this was killing me earlier. And I put it in the box and ignored it. Now it doesn't matter because I neither had too much or too little. Thank you for that. Oh, hex clock timer. If anybody hasn't, if especially if you have ADHD or any kind of neurospiciness, a visual timer can be very useful. So I won't go into that now, but yeah, you can Google it later. Um, Mel Robinson visualization. Yes. Oh, thank you, Clem. Some people up in chat asked about suggestions for planning and tracking revision versus writing and drafting. It's tricky to track revision, period. I have found, and this is my very short answer, but I found over the course of many years of teaching revision that the best way to do it overall is to track two things: the time your butt is in the chair doing the revision and your word count. What's really frustrating and your overall word count. So today, when you left the desk today, you were at 12,000 words. Tomorrow, when you left the desk, you're at 14,000 words. The problem is the next day when you leave the desk, you lost 7,000 words and now you're back at 7,000 words. So your tracker goes all the way down because you cut out all those scenes. But over time, over the course of a month or two, you really do get a very good handle on revision words per hour because it it averages out. So you can track it that way. It is just a frustrating way, but word count it tends to be the best. Yeah, that's a very, very short answer. Amal says, how to manage the external fears that are beyond the inner critic, but true fears and consequences if and when I publish my memoir. Beverly says, I published an essay that was very sensitive regarding family trauma. As I wrote it, I told myself I just had to write it, not worry about publishing it. And when I decided I did want to send it out, I shared it with the person most affected to get her quote unquote blessing. The biggest that is such a huge and common question. The best way to get past that particular voice of those true fears and true worries about true consequences is to ignore them, put them in the box and ignore them while writing and revising because it will never be accidentally published. It will never accidentally jump on the shelves of Barnes and Noble. And those decisions of how to handle the family and how you eventually tell the story in its very final form are for much later down the track. And you must ignore those worries in literally ignore. You cannot argue with them or you won't do the work. Is to put them away and write the best book you can, the most truthfully you can, and then work with somebody, an editor, a publicist, to shape the book and either get the blessing of the family or not. It could be you have the right to not get the blessing, but those are things to only worry about when the book is done. And I know that's a very short answer to a very complex and huge question, but overall, write the truest, strongest version and worry how to get it out in the world later. Um, let's see. Repeating April's question, satisfying ways to track plan for revision. Okay, we talked about that. Yes, Sarah, often minus numbers, totally okay. Um, oh, I wonder if we'll get, I'm going to go so fast. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed with all my goals and I'm retired, so I have time, so I get it filled up with groceries and cooking and cleaning and all the things my inner critic tells me I need to do first. I feel like I am working out my school timetable. My encouragement for that would be to look at the writing and ask yourself, what's the minimum viable goal you could have for a week? Minimum, lowest possible, but probably a little bit more than what you did last week. And then fit it in first if possible, and then all the other things you want to do, the walk, stretch, practice Spanish, art, piano, then you'll feel so good that the writing was done that day. Essentialism. I have read that, Francesca, and I haven't read it in a while. Less is better. Less is always better. Minimum viable goal. Danielle says it's never enough time with me because I'm trying to say too much. Let's see. Are readers necessary? Absolutely not. Readers are not necessary. For a lot of the things I write, there will never be a reader, and that is a choice we all get to make. Danielle, I will answer that one offline, but the answer is yes. That's a quick answer. Yeah, hex clock, just making sure there's no more questions. Um, okay, great, Martica, comment there. Okay, we're out of time. This was incredibly delightful. Overview again, I will be sending out the replay of this for everybody. I will be sending out the invitation into the Rachel Says Plan Slack channel. That is completely optional. It's a bonus that comes with this class. You do not have to avail yourself of it. But it would be lovely to have you in that Slack channel if you want. And I will be sending out those tools that I sent you. Please send me any questions that you have as you go along. It has just been an absolute joy. I hate to say goodbye, but I do love to hear your voices. So I'm going to invite us to do that beautiful cacophony that I often invite. And if you would like to unmute and wish your friends happy writing, you may. And I'll see you so soon. Thank you, everybody.
Writing.
Thank you,
Happy
Rachel.
writing.
Yeah, everybody,
Bye.
thank you
Happy
so
writing.
much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yay.
Thank you,
Bye,
Rachel.
everybody.
This has
Happy New
been
Year.
great.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
Happy New Year.